The applause came in waves, bright and hollow, like coins dropping into an empty fountain. Maya stood under the glare of the university lights, cap angled, smile fixed, a photograph waiting to happen. From the stage she looked like every other graduate, polished, proud, ready. But her heart was somewhere else, in the second row where her parents sat stiff and practiced beside the one person who didn't fake her joy. Her grandmother, Evelyn Hart, glowed like she'd swallowed sunlight. White hair pinned with ruthless precision, a silk scarf that probably cost more than Maya's tuition, and that unwavering gaze, the kind that made truth nervous. When Maya's name was called, Evelyn rose before anyone else, clapping hard, deliberate. Her father's claps lagged, her mother's were tight and mechanical. A family synchronized only in pretense. The diploma felt heavier than it should have, embossed paper that smelled faintly of ink and irony. Maya had worked for it, scraping through double shifts and sleepless semesters while her parents claimed things were tight this year. Every Christmas, the same apology wrapped in financial jargon, investments take time. Every birthday, the same promise, things will turn around. Now, standing on stage with her future dangling by student loans, Maya thought she understood the math of her life, until Evelyn shattered it when the ceremony ended. Evelyn waved her cane like a command. "Dinner's on me," she announced, voice sharp enough to part the crowd. Her mother's smile froze. Her father cleared his throat, the sound of impending doom disguised as politeness. They gathered at an upscale restaurant on the hill, all glass and understatement. The kind of place where the menu had no prices, which meant everyone except Evelyn couldn't afford it. Wine poured, toasts exchanged. The waiter placed silver-domed plates before them like offerings to old gods. Then Evelyn leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes sparkling with mischief. "To my granddaughter," she said. "The first heart to finish college without the help of our family fortune." A burr laughter flickered around the table, unsure, delayed. Evelyn watched her son's face pale. Her voice softened but didn't lose its edge. "Though I'm rather curious," she continued. "How did you manage all those years without touching the trust fund?" Heber and Maya blinked. "Trust fund?" Silence stretched, long enough for the waiter to hesitate mid-step. Her father looked down at his glass. Her mother's hand twitched toward the bread knife, then stopped halfway. Evelyn's eyes gleamed. "The one I established when you were born, sweetheart. $3 million, meant to give you choices I never had." The world tilted. For a moment Maya thought she'd misheard. Her pulse thudded in her ears, a slow, incredulous rhythm. "Grandma, I don't have any trust fund." Evelyn's smile vanished like a curtain drop. "What did you just say?" Her father tried to interject, voice brittle. "Mom, this isn't really the—" Evelyn slammed her palm on the table. The crystalware rattled. "Where is it, Daniel?" The restaurant hushed. Even the jazz pianist faltered, hitting a wrong note that hung like an accusation. Maya's mother whispered, "Can we not do this here?" Evelyn ignored her. "I named you trustees for one purpose, to protect her future. Where is the money?" Her father's mouth opened, closed. Her mother exhaled through her nose, a fragile, practiced sound. "Things didn't go as planned, Mother. Markets crashed. Investments, fabric." "Oh, don't insult me with that word," Evelyn snapped. "You've never invested in anything except appearances." Maya's fingers went numb. The conversation felt like it was happening underwater. A trust fund? Her parents were trustees? She wanted to ask 100 questions, but words failed. Evelyn turned to her. "Did you sign anything? Withdraw anything?" Maya shook her head. "No. I didn't even know it existed." Her grandmother looked as though she'd aged a decade and a heartbeat. "A decade and a heartbeat." The fury drained, replaced by a sadness that felt ancient. "Then they stole it." The sentence detonated quietly. Maya's father reached across the table, voice trembling with reason. "Mom, please. It wasn't theft. We used the money for the family, for her." For her?" Evelyn's voice sliced through the air. "She worked herself raw while you were remodeling kitchens and taking vacations. Every table around them pretended not to listen. Forks suspended, phones held at discreet angles." Evelyn leaned back, gathering what dignity remained. "You'll send her the statements." Every document, every account, tonight. Her mother's jaw tightened. Mother, don't do this. But Evelyn was already standing. It's already done. She placed a check on the table, the dinner bill paid in full, and rested a wrinkled hand on Maya's shoulder. Come by tomorrow, darling. We'll talk when the liars are sober. Then she walked out, cane clicking like a gavel on marble. Maya sat frozen, the world narrowing to the half-empty glass before her. Across the table, her parents looked smaller than she'd ever seen them, like characters caught between excuses and exposure. Outside, flashbulbs from strangers' phones flared. Somewhere, this scene had already begun turning into a story. And for the first time, Maya realized, this wasn't a family dinner. It was the opening act of a reckoning. The next morning arrived dressed in silence. No buzzing notifications, no congratulations texts. Just the low hum of humiliation echoing in Maya's chest. The graduation gown hung like a ghost on her chair, still smelling of perfume and panic. She barely slept. Every time her eyes closed, she saw her grandmother's face across the restaurant table. Fury and heartbreak fused into one sharp, unforgettable image. By noon, her phone lit up. Grandma Evelyn. Come over. Bring yourself, not your parents. Evelyn's house wasn't just a home, it was an institution. Built on a hill that seemed to lean closer when you approached, the mansion looked both welcoming and judgmental, like a cathedral for truth. Maya parked in the circular driveway and sat for a long minute, gripping the steering wheel. She felt like a soldier returning from a war that had only just been declared. When the heavy oak doors opened, Evelyn's housekeeper, Marta, gave her a sad, knowing nod. She's been up since 6, she whispered. Be ready. Evelyn sat in her study, sunlight slicing through tall windows and landing on stacks of paper spread across a mahogany desk. There was a leather-bound binder open in front of her. Numbers, seals, and signatures lined its pages like evidence waiting for judgment. You look pale, Evelyn said, not unkindly. Sit. I made tea, you'll need it. Maya obeyed, fingers curling around the delicate porcelain cup as if it might ground her. This, Evelyn said, tapping the binder, is your life on paper. Or what should have been. She turned the binder toward Maya. Columns of figures marched across each page. Deposits, dividends, transfers. The initial endowment was there, $3 million. 000, funded the year Maya was born. Evelyn traced a wrinkled finger down the columns, voice steady. For the first decade, everything grew properly. Then, about 11 years ago, the withdrawals began. Maya leaned forward. Each transaction had a neat memo beside it. Investment opportunity, home improvement, family trip, tuition support. Her breath hitched. They used my money for vacations? And to refinance their mortgage, Evelyn added. Then a series of consulting ventures that didn't exist. They drained almost all of it by your 21st birthday. Maya felt the ground dissolve beneath her. I was working 2 jobs that summer, she whispered. Dad said they couldn't help because of medical bills. Evelyn's jaw tightened. They lied, darling, and not out of desperation, out of vanity. For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the faint rustle of paper, like the whisper of ghosts refusing to stay buried. Maya flipped through the binder, page after page of betrayal disguised in polite accounting. What do I even do with this? You fight, Evelyn said, her eyes gleaming with cold fire. You hire counsel, you file injunctions, you reclaim what's yours. I've already contacted my attorney, Patricia Chen. She's formidable. Maya stared at her grandmother, stunned by the decisiveness. You've done all that since last night? Evelyn sipped her tea. When you've lived long enough, you learn that waiting is how villains win. The doorbell rang. Marta reappeared, holding a small envelope. Courier delivery for Miss Hart. Evelyn gestured for Maya to open it. Inside were photocopies of 2 letters, both dated 5 years earlier, both signed by her parents. The first requested early withdrawal from the trust to manage unforeseen family emergencies. The second, more damning, requested complete liquidation of assets. Beneath their signatures, a faint notation, approved by trustees. Patricia found those in the bank's archived records this morning, Evelyn said. You'll need them when we file. Maya felt something strange stirring inside her. Anger, yes, but also clarity. The fog that had always clouded her family suddenly thinned. Every polite lie, every we're just struggling right now, every guilt trip disguised as love. They all lined up, perfectly, like suspects in a lineup. Evelyn reached across the desk, placing her cool, jeweled hand over Maya's trembling one. You didn't lose money, dear. You lost trust. That's far more dangerous. So now you'll rebuild both. Properly. Ebrr. The room grew heavy with meaning. Outside, a wind rose, rattling the glass like applause for a truth too long delayed. Maya exhaled. I'll do it. Whatever it takes. Evelyn smiled faintly. Good. Because the hardest part isn't proving they stole from you. She leaned closer, voice soft as confession. It's proving you can rise above what they made you. As Maya left the study, she caught sight of herself in the hallway mirror, eyes harder, shoulders squared. The reflection looked older, less naive. By the time she reached her car, a message from an unknown number blinked on her phone. Aberfie, we need to talk. Please don't involve your grandmother. Mom Abruf. Maya stared at the message, thumb hovering over the reply button. She could almost hear her mother's trembling voice, pleading, rehearsed, strategic. But Evelyn's words echoed louder. When you've lived long enough, you learn that waiting is how villains win. Maya deleted the message. Then she opened her camera app, snapped a picture of the trust ledger, and saved it to a new folder labeled The Reckoning. 3 weeks later, Maya found herself in a courtroom that smelled faintly of old paper and disinfectant. The scent of history trying to stay clean. Her palms were slick against the smooth surface of the witness table. The hearing wasn't even about guilt yet. It was a preliminary motion to freeze assets, a formality, Patricia said. But nothing felt formal about staring at the two people who had raised her, now sitting opposite her in carefully ironed defeat. Her father wouldn't look at her. Her mother did once. That half-smile she always used when pretending things weren't falling apart. Evelyn sat directly behind Maya, spine straight as marble, a quiet storm in pearls. Patricia whispered, Stay calm, let the facts talk. But the facts were daggers, and they were all hers. The judge's voice droned through motions and exhibits. When Patricia presented the trust documents, complete with forged investment letters, Maya saw her parents flinch. The lie wasn't abstract anymore. It was printed, signed, notarized. Certified betrayal. For a fleeting moment, she wanted to call it all off. Watching her parents shrink under the fluorescent lights, she felt the ghost of love stirring. The years of bedtime stories, family road trips, the illusion of safety. It rose like smoke, beautiful and choking. Then the clerk read aloud a transaction memo. Wire transfer, $75,000, destination, Riviera Starlight Casino. The courtroom's silence was surgical. Maya's stomach turned cold. The judge raised an eyebrow. A casino? Her father's lawyer mumbled something about investment opportunities gone wrong. The phrase landed like a joke no one dared to laugh at. Evelyn closed her eyes. Maya could feel the older woman's restraint trembling behind her. When the gavel finally struck, freezing their accounts until further review, the sound didn't feel like victory. It felt like a funeral. Outside, the air was too bright. Cameras flashed. Word had leaked, of course. Heirs. Misused trust. It was the kind of story that traveled fast because it was soaked in irony. Patricia guided Maya toward the car, shielding her with a folder. You handled it well, she said. Next, we gather more. They'll fight dirty. But Maya wasn't listening. Across the parking lot, her father stood smoking, face gray. Her mother's sunglasses couldn't hide the streaks of mascara running beneath them. They looked smaller than she remembered. Not villains, just hollow people trapped inside their own consequences. Maya, her mother called softly. Please, let's talk. Patricia intervened firm, no contact. But Maya hesitated. There was something raw in her mother's voice, something that sounded less like manipulation and more like exhaustion. I'll meet her, Maya said quietly. Patricia frowned. Off record? Berkey, Maya nodded. Just once. The meeting took place in a quiet park on the edge of town. The kind of Clakeritz could breathe. The sky was pale, restless. Her mother arrived first, clutching a tote bag like a lifeline. She looked thinner, makeup minimal, hands shaking. I wasn't going to come, she said, but you should know the truth before this destroys us all. Ibrahim Maya folded her arms. The truth? Or your version of it? Her mother sighed. You think it was greed? But it wasn't, not at first. Your father lost his job when you were 12. We panicked. The trust was supposed to be temporary help, alone. Then the investments went bad. One mistake turned into survival. Survival turned into silence. Maya's anger softened for half a second, enough for guilt to creep in. You could have told me. Ibra, her mother's voice cracked. We thought we could fix it before you found out. But then the losses grew, and your grandmother. She'd never forgive us, so we hid it. Tears welled, but they weren't enough to erase years of deceit. You didn't just hide it, Maya said. You watched me suffer and let me think you were broke. You lied while I worked double shifts. Abra, her mother's lips trembled. I told myself it was for your own good, that if we rebuilt it quietly, you'd never have to carry the shame. Ibrahim Maya stepped back. You weren't protecting me. You were protecting yourselves. She burned. Then something unexpected happened. Her mother reached into her and pulled out a small leather-bound journal. Evelyn's handwriting scrawled across the cover. She kept this hidden in her safe, her mother whispered. I took it years ago. Ibrahim Maya froze. You stole from her too? Her mother nodded, tears spilling. I didn't read it. I was too afraid. But maybe you should. Maya snatched the book and walked away, pulse hammering. The weight of it in her hands felt ancient, dangerous. That night, in her apartment, she opened the journal under the hum of a single lamp. The first entry stopped her breath cold. If this trust ever fails, it will be because I trusted the wrong heir. Not my granddaughter, but the children I raised to crave power over purpose. Maya stared at the words. The ink pressed deep, like a wound that refused to heal. Her grandmother had seen it coming. And for the first time, Maya realized this wasn't just about stolen money. It was about inheritance, blood, and the curse of believing love could ever be safe when tied to fortune. The journal never left Maya's desk after that night. It sat open beside her laptop as she traced every entry like a code. Fragments of Evelyn's life, equal parts affection and foresight. Between lists of charitable foundations and real estate deals, one line kept stabbing at her. Crust is not paperwork, it's character inked in choices. Evelyn had written that years before the scandal, before Maya was even old enough to spell inheritance. It read like a prophecy. Now the investigation had evolved from private grievance to public warfare. Newspapers ran the story weekly, each headline sharper than the last. Heir sues parents over misused trust. Family fortune in flames. Her parents' faces had become cautionary tales. The internet was brutal, the comments crueler. Patricia warned her that visibility cut both ways. They'll turn on you too, she said. You're the girl who sued her own blood. Some people will never see justice, only disloyalty. Ibrahim Maya knew that. She felt it in the stares at the grocery store, in the whispers at her workplace. Even victory, it seemed, demanded a price. But the ledger didn't lie. The trust had been bled dry. And beneath Evelyn's poised silence there was a storm waiting to break. 2 nights before the final court hearing, Maya drove to Evelyn's house, heart pounding like a countdown. The air was heavy with an approaching storm. She found her grandmother in the study again, reviewing documents by lamplight, the same room where the truth had first unfolded. You shouldn't be here this late, Evelyn said, without looking up. You need rest. Burke, I found your journal, Maya said. Evelyn's pen froze mid-sentence. Slowly she lifted her gaze. So your mother gave it back. Burfy, Maya nodded. She said she stole it. I thought you should know. Evelyn's expression didn't soften, it hardened. Of course she did. Even my words weren't safe from her hands. Burfy, Maya hesitated. There's something else. Of what you wrote, it feels like you knew they'd betray you. Evelyn sighed, closing the folder in front of her. Knowing something is different from believing it. I warned your father not to let greed dress itself as ambition. He thought I was testing him. I wasn't. Lightning flickered beyond the window, throwing the room into sharp light. I can't stop wondering, Maya confessed, voice trembling. What if I'm the same? What if all this fighting turns me into what I'm trying to punish? Oh, Berfu, Evelyn's eyes softened, just slightly. That's the question every survivor faces. But revenge and justice are separated by purpose. You're doing this to reclaim truth, not destroy lives. Berhi Maya looked away. It doesn't feel that clean anymore. Berhi, Evelyn leaned back, exhaustion visible now. It never is, darling. Truth costs blood from both sides. Berhi, Hebrew. The next day brought rain, the kind that blurred the world into watercolor. Maya arrived at the courthouse in a black coat that felt more like armor. Cameras swarmed again, reporters shouting her name. She kept her gaze forward, each step steady but heavy. Inside, Patricia organized folders with surgical calm. They filed an emergency motion, she said. Your father's attorney claims Evelyn coerced you. They're trying to void the case's undue influence. Berhi Maya blinked. They're saying Grandma manipulated me? Berhi, yes. They're accusing her of turning you against them for control of the estate. Burka. It felt like a gut punch. Her parents weren't just denying the theft. They were trying to rewrite the story entirely. When court convened, their lawyer spun a tale so polished it almost gleamed. My clients only sought to protect their daughter's future, he said smoothly. The grandmother, motivated by resentment, weaponized this trust to fracture a family. Ibruki, Maya clenched her fists. Each word dripped poison. Patricia rose with quiet fury. We have records, Your Honor. We have bank statements, signed withdrawals, even correspondence acknowledging the misuse. The only weapon here was deceit. The judge glanced toward Maya. Miss Hart, would you like to make a statement? Every instinct screamed no, but then she saw her parents, calm, rehearsed, playing the victims, and something in her snapped. She stood. They didn't just steal my money. They stole years. They let me beg for help they could have given with a signature. They watched me drown and called it responsibility. Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. My grandmother didn't manipulate me. She saved me. Because when someone steals your future and smiles while doing it, silence becomes complicity. The courtroom was still. The judge nodded once, the faintest sign of respect. That's enough. As Maya sat, tears blurred her vision. Not weakness, but release. Outside, thunder rolled like applause from the heavens. That night, she received a call from the hospital. Evelyn had collapsed at home. The storm had finally broken, and suddenly, the fight for money didn't matter, because the one person who'd taught her strength might not live to see her win. Rain turned the city into a blur of light and reflection, as if the world itself was grieving. Maya stood in the hospital corridor, motionless, while the monitors in room 412 beeped a slow, stubborn rhythm. Evelyn lay against crisp white sheets. Her once commanding presence dimmed to frail breath, and silver hair fanned against the pillow. Doctors had called it a minor stroke. She's stable, they said, but weak. The word weak didn't belong to Evelyn Hart. Yet here it was, echoing like a verdict. Maya slipped into the room quietly. The scent of antiseptic and wilted roses clung to the air. On the bedside table lay a single document, folded, signed, sealed with Evelyn's fountain pen. A letter addressed to her. Maya didn't open it. Not yet. She took Evelyn's hand instead, the skin papery but still warm. You shouldn't have been alone, she whispered. I should have been here. Evelyn stirred, eyelids fluttering open. You are here, she murmured, voice thin but steady. That's enough. Ears burned behind Maya's eyes. They're saying you manipulated me, that you turned me against them. A faint smile curved the old woman's lips. Let them. People who steal will always need a story where they're still the victims. Maya tried to laugh but couldn't. The hearing's next week. Patricia thinks we'll win. You will, Evelyn said softly. But winning is never the point. The point is whether you still know who you are when it's over. Her grandmother's eyes closed again, and Maya sat in silence, the rhythm of the heart monitor syncing with her own pulse. Steady, fragile, real. 2 days later, Evelyn was gone. No words, no warning, just the quiet exit of someone who had already prepared the world for her absence. Patricia called early that morning, voice hushed but professional. She passed in her sleep, Maya. Peacefully. Peaceful. The word didn't land, it shattered. By the time the funeral arrived, the entire city seemed to know their story. Reporters gathered behind the wrought iron gates, flashes cutting through drizzle. Maya didn't look at them. She focused on the coffin, mahogany, simple, unadorned, and the empty space beside it where her parents should have been. They hadn't come. After the service, Patricia handed Maya an envelope. "Your grandmother left instructions," she said, "and something else. You'll want privacy." Maya opened the envelope in the car. Inside was a new will. Evelyn had divided her estate differently now. A portion for charities, a trust for financial education initiatives, and the remainder placed solely in Maya's name. But attached to it was another note, handwritten, E.B. Bursia. "This isn't payment, it's responsibility. If you've learned anything from what's happened, let it be this. Wealth is only safe in the hands of those who understand its cost." Maya pressed the paper to her chest and cried. Not from gratitude, but from the unbearable truth of legacy. The final court hearing took place a week later, in the same courtroom where the battle had begun. Her parents looked different now, worn, almost spectral. The arrogance was gone, replaced by quiet defeat. Patricia laid out the evidence one last time. The transfers, the falsified documents, the correspondence. It was a symphony of proof, every note cold and irrefutable. When the judge called for closing statements, Maya rose unexpectedly. Patricia tried to stop her, but she shook her head. "I don't want revenge," she said, her voice calm but raw. "I wanted the truth. And now that I have it, I realize truth doesn't heal, it exposes. I can't undo what they did, I can't unsee who they are, but I can decide what kind of person I'll be because of it." She turned toward her parents. "You taught me to survive. Grandma taught me to stand. I guess that's what makes us family. We pass down both the wounds and the strength to live through them." Her mother's face crumpled. Her father stared at the floor, motionless. The judge's gavel came down like thunder. Judgment is entered in favor of the plaintiff. Restitution and penalties as outlined. Case closed. Maya exhaled, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like surrender. The war was over, but the silence it left behind was heavier than any judgment. Outside the courthouse, the same reporters waited, microphones thrust forward. "Miss Hart, do you have a statement?" She paused, raindrops streaking her face, her reflection fractured in a dozen camera lenses. "Yes," she said quietly, "this was never about money. It was about remembering who I refused to become." She turned and walked away. Into the rain, into her future, into a world where truth had cost her everything but left her free. Back home. The hospital letter waited on her desk. Maya unfolded it slowly. Evelyn's final handwriting trailed like a whisper. "If I don't live to see the verdict, know this. Justice was never my goal. I only wanted to leave you unafraid of choosing what's right, even when it breaks your heart." Maya smiled through tears, set the letter beside the journal, and whispered into the quiet, "Lesson learned, Grandma. Lesson learned." Months passed, though time felt different now. Quieter, slower, as if the world itself was learning to breathe again. The storm had ended, but the echoes lingered. Maya's apartment no longer felt like a stopgap between crises. The boxes of legal papers were gone, replaced by plants, framed photos, and the faint scent of lavender from Evelyn's old perfume bottle that she'd kept on the shelf. It wasn't victory that filled the space, it was peace, fragile, earned, imperfect. Every morning she woke before sunrise, just as her grandmother had. She made tea instead of coffee, opened the window to the hum of the city, and read one page from Evelyn's journal. The entries had become a ritual, lessons written in ink that hadn't yet dried in her heart. Some were about money, others about grace, but all carried the same undertone. Power without empathy corrodes. It was a truth she now understood in her bones. After the court ruling, the world's fascination with her family had begun to fade. News cycles moved on, but the scars remained in whispers. Her parents had filed for bankruptcy, sold their home, and relocated to another state. She didn't block their numbers, but she didn't answer either. Every few weeks, her mother sent a short email, updates written in restrained sentences, careful not to ask for anything. Maya read them all and replied to none. Forgiveness wasn't absence of anger, it was the refusal to let anger govern her life. One morning, a message arrived from Patricia. The final transfer from restitution has cleared. The trust is officially restored. Maya stared at the words for a long time. Once, that would have meant freedom. Now, it only meant weight. She wired half of it to the foundation Evelyn had always dreamed of, one that would provide legal aid to victims of financial abuse. The rest she invested, slowly, carefully, in real projects that built rather than bled. She even purchased a small office downtown. Nothing grand, just a space with sunlight and promise. She named it the Heart Collective. The first day the sign went up, she stood on the sidewalk with a quiet smile, tracing the letters with her eyes. It wasn't just a company, it was a vow, to handle what she'd been given with integrity, to make sure no one else's inheritance became their heartbreak. That evening, she visited Evelyn's grave for the first time since the burial. The cemetery overlooked the city skyline, and a faint autumn wind carried the scent of rain and soil. She knelt beside the headstone, fingertips brushing the engraved words, Shia Burke Evelyn Hart, builder, believer, teacher. Maya placed a folded piece of paper beneath a small stone, her own letter this time. You were right. Winning was never the point. The point was remembering that truth, once spoken, doesn't need to shout. I think I'm finally ready to live quietly, the way you did. Powerful without needing applause. She stayed there until the streetlights flickered on, casting gold against marble. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a siren wailed. Distant, human, fleeting. Ibabruker, weeks later, she was invited to speak at a university seminar. Ethics and Legacy in Modern Wealth Management. The irony wasn't lost on her. Standing at the podium, looking at the sea of young faces, she remembered her own graduation. The applause, the revelation, the implosion. The story felt like another lifetime. She began simply, I used to think inheritance was about money. Now I know it's about memory, what we carry and what we refuse to repeat. The room stilled. She spoke of accountability, of silence as complicity, of the courage it takes to confront love when it becomes harmful. But she ended with something softer. When the people who raised you fail you, it doesn't erase what they taught you before they fell. It just means you get to decide which lessons survive. The audience didn't clap right away. They sat in silence, absorbing, perhaps recognizing themselves in the ache between her words. When the applause finally came, it wasn't loud, it was reverent. That night, back home, she placed Evelyn's journal on her nightstand and added a new entry of her own. Today I spoke without anger. That's new. Maybe that's healing. She closed the cover gently, switched off the lamp, and let darkness settle like calm water. Outside, rain began again, soft, rhythmic, cleansing. The city pulsed with quiet light. And somewhere she imagined her grandmother smiling, not from pride, but from relief. Maya lay awake for a while, listening to the rain and the steady beat of her own heart. The only inheritance that had ever truly mattered. In the hush before sleep claimed her, one final thought drifted through her mind, clear and unwavering. I didn't just reclaim what they stole. I became what they never learned to be, free,